This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Sefer Melachim. All right. We discussed Shlomo HaMelech. Are you guys ready? You got some great stories. The Pasuk in Kohelet says, Bikesh Shlomo. Bikesh Kohelet. Kohelet means Shlomo HaMelech. Bikesh Kohelet limtzot divrei hefetz. The Gemara explains what was Kohelet, what was Shlomo HaMelech looking to find. He was looking to find something very interesting. The Gemara says Shlomo HaMelech wanted to change the rules. We know that from the Torah, a person who's judging a case is not supposed to judge a case and render a ruling unless there's two witnesses that come and testify. If it's a capital punishment, if it's somebody that needs to get punished, if that person wasn't warned, which is called hatra'ah, or there weren't two witnesses, you can't punish him. Shlomo HaMelech wanted to change the rules. Shlomo HaMelech wanted to make it that you don't need witnesses, that you don't need warning. And then what happened was, Bat Kol, a heavenly voice, came down and said, No, Shlomo, Uchtuv v'chatuv yosher divrei emet. It says v'chatuv yosher, the Torah. The Torah says the truth, and the Torah requires two witnesses. Al pi shnayim edim yakum davar. So Ben Ish Chai asked a question. He says, how is it possible that Shlomo HaMelech wanted to change the rules of the Torah? Does that make sense? A righteous king is going to change the system of the Torah? That doesn't seem to make so much sense. So the Ben Ish Chai gives an amazing explanation in his Sefer Ben Yoyada. He brings a very powerful story that happened in the times of Shlomo. As we know, Shlomo HaMelech would sit in his palace, and all of the Chachamim, all of the wise men were there. All of the great generals were there. Who was our great general, right? Remember Benayahu ben Yoyada? Everybody would stand. And Shlomo HaMelech would sit on his throne, and one day walks in. You remember Ashmadai? One day Ashmadai walks into the courtroom of Shlomo HaMelech, the king of all the demons. And Shlomo HaMelech sees him and recognizes him right away. Ashmadai looks at Shlomo, Shlomo looks at Ashmadai, and Ashmadai says, Are you the king that is said about him, Vayechkam mikol ha'adam, is the wisest of all men? Shlomo HaMelech says, the wisdom that I have was given to me by God because I requested it. So what happened was, Ashmadai says, are you interested in seeing something that nobody else has ever seen before? Shh, guys, I want you to sit down. I want you to come and sit. Okay. So Ashmadai says, let me find you somebody that you've never seen before. A creature that's like no other creature. And all of a sudden Ashmadai reaches down into an underworld. A world that wasn't like this world. And he pulls out a person. This person was not a regular person. This person had two heads. Two heads. It had 4 eyes, one for each head, 2 noses, 4 ears, 2 mouths. Shlomo HaMelech has never seen anything like this. He was so scared. He was freaking out. He didn't know what to do. And it says, I need a few minutes. He goes into his chamber and he calls in Benayahu. He says, Benayahu, I want to show you something, because Benayahu wasn't there. He says, you've never seen anything like this. Tell me, Benayahu, did you ever hear of some strange creature living in an underworld? He says, look, I don't know, but I know one thing. Your father, David HaMelech, had an aluf, had a great general, a great advisor, that one time said that there is such a thing. He says, let me show you something. And he takes Benayahu and he calls in this creature, and the creature walks into the room. And Benayahu sees this, and he falls to the ground, and he actually says a bracha. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam she'echianu v'kimanu v'higanu lazeman hazeh. You see something like that, so strange that no one has ever seen in the world. He says she'echianu. And then Shlomo turns to Benayahu. Benayahu says, I've never seen anything like this. And Shlomo says, okay, let's see what he has to say. Tell me, what are you? And he says, I am from the children of Cain. It says that Cain was a very special creature. Of course, Cain was the son of Adam HaRishon, but Cain was very different because of the sin and because of various things. He had children that were strange, that were not like regular human beings. And he was one of the children. He said, tell me, where do you live? He says, I live in a world called Tevel. It's not exactly how we live, where we live. He says, do you have everything normal? Is there a sun? Is there a moon? Is there stars? Is there animals? He says, yeah, we do everything like everybody else. We have a sun, we have a moon, we take care of our sheep, we have cattle, we have everything. So he says, do you want to go back to your world and not be here? He says, sure, I want to go back to my home. So Shlomo HaMelech says to Ashmadai, take him back. Ashmadai says, I can't do that. Once I take him out of that world, I can't bring him back. So this person hears that he can't go back to his home. What does he decide? He said, okay, I'll live in this world. And he gets married. He finds himself a wife. Somehow, some woman agrees to marry him. And he has two heads, and he's talking like everybody else. One head talks, another head talks. He gets married. And sure enough, because he's so unique, and people see him, people paid him a lot of money just to see him. He became very rich. Became one of the richest people in Eretz Yisrael in the times of Shlomo HaMelech. And he actually, interestingly, had children. It said that he had 6 children because his wife was a regular human being. It was normal. So 6 of his children were regular. 1 head, 2 eyes, like all of us. But he had 1 child that had 2 heads, just like him. So he had 7 children. 1 of them was like him. The other 6 was like his wife. And sure enough, after several years, he passed away. The children come before Shlomo. And it's a question of how to divide all of the money that their father had. He had a lot of money. And the 6 are saying, we're 7. So we divide it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 parts. Everybody gets 1 part. And the person with the 2 heads said, no, I'm 2. We should divide it 8, and I get 2 portions because I have 2 heads. And they got into a fight. They said, no, you're 1. No, I'm 2. And they start arguing back and forth. How much should they get? It's a lot of money you're talking about. So, what happened was, they went to Shlomo. And Shlomo HaMelech heard the case. He heard their position. He heard the position of the 2 heads, the 1 head. And Shlomo HaMelech didn't know what to do. He wasn't sure. What should I do? He said to everybody, okay, it's already getting late. I'll give you the din, the psak, will come tomorrow. That'll give him some time to think. Now, in the meantime, Shlomo HaMelech realizes he doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing. So what do you do when you don't know? You turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He starts crying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the middle of the night when no one's looking. He's praying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you promised to give me wisdom. I didn't ask you for gold. I didn't ask you for silver. I didn't ask you for anything. I just wanted wisdom to be able to judge. Like you judge. Please give me the wisdom to solve this. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered Shlomo HaMelech and says, you will be able to solve this and I will give you the way and the solution forward. The next day comes and Shlomo HaMelech is imbued with this wisdom. This is a special wisdom. He says to his guards, I need you to get me hot water, old wine, yain yashan, very aged wine, and I need you to get me a white linen cloth. special white linen, 100% linen. He calls in this creature, the son, that looked like his father, right? The two heads. He says, come over here. You claim to be two, right? You claim that you deserve two. We're going to do a test right now. Shlomo HaMelech takes the hot water and takes the wine. And he puts the cloth on one of the heads to cover up the head. The head is covered. And he pours the hot water together with the wine on the first head. Now, he keeps pouring. The first head is screaming. But the second head is saying, stop. I'm going to die also. Shlomo HaMelech says, what? Excuse me, what'd you say? Stop! I'm also going to die. He says, if so, stop. He told the guards, okay, enough. They cleaned him up. They patched up all the burns and everything. They said, that head was supposed to be screaming, I understand, but why were you screaming that you're going to die? What does this mean? You're one person. If you're one person, you only get the inheritance of one. If every head was different, then why should I care what's happening to him? I'm a different head. Must be you're one person. And Shlomo HaMelech was able to determine the halacha. The whole entire courtroom, all the people in the courtroom started cheering, yeah, Shlomo HaMelech. Everybody saw that his ruling was just and was correct, which was amazing. However, the Ben Ish Chai asks a question. He says, what's so wise about that? That doesn't sound so great. Any person should have thought to go ahead. Yeah, I think he's saying he's two people, right? Go take a hammer, knock one over the head, see if the other one says ouch. It's obvious. No? Isn't that like the obvious thing to do? What is it require? Such wisdom, you have to pray in the middle of the night. You're the smartest person in the world. What took Shlomo HaMelech such a... Why was it so hard for him? So answers the Ben Ish Chai very interestingly. He says, Before I get to how he answers the question, I'll tell you another story that happened many years before, in the times of David HaMelech, when Shlomo HaMelech was just a little kid, your age. A lot of your ages. Shlomo HaMelech was in the palace, and one day, this story comes up. The story happens. There was a father, a regular father, but he was rich. He had a lot of money. He had a big home, like a palace with slaves and with guards and with maids and everything. Rooms all over, fields, rich. He decided to send his son. His son was very savvy, very wise, successful in business. He knew how to do business. He said, look, I'm going to send you with a lot of gold, a lot of silver. I want you to go to Africa. And I want you to make a good investment and spend time there, make a lot of money, and do a good job. And then, after many, many years, come back and bring all the money that you made with you. The son was a good son. He said, okay, Abba. His father sends him with a significant amount of money. He goes, finds a place in Africa, finds a good business deal, gets involved, starts a business, finding diamonds, finding gold. He's doing great, making a lot of money, but he's very far away. No communication, the distance, there wasn't any phones, anything. It was very hard to communicate. The father was living in the palace. This was his only son. And sure enough, after several years, the father died. He was already old. He died. The son didn't know. Everything that the father had was left for the attendance of the servant. There was an Evid, there was a servant, and he took care of everything of the father. But this servant became very arrogant, and he decided, why should I take care of it? I'm the one here. The son isn't here. I'm going to take it for myself. Because he had all the passwords, he had all the codes, he had all the keys. He said, I'll just take it for myself. He stole it all. Now there were other people. There was the wife, there was the brothers. He kicked them all out of the house. Get out of here, get out of here, get out of here. He sent them, banished them away. And he was in charge. That's it. Now it's my empire. It's my castle. It's my servants. It's my everything. He would eat. He would drink. He lived like a king. Everything belongs to me. But one day the son came back. And the son was, where's Abba? Where's my father? And he found out that his father died. He was sad. Of Of course, as every son finds out that his father died, it's very sad. But the slave didn't even let him mourn properly. He says, what are you doing here? Get out of here. This is all mine. I don't want you here. I don't want to see your face here. He starts cursing him. He tries to kick him out of the palace. He says, excuse me. This is my palace. I'm the son. This is everything that you have over here is mine. And they got into a big fight. The servant says, it's all mine. And the son says, it's all mine. Now the servant, he understands that if he says, I am the servant, no one's going to believe that a father is going to give everything to his servant over his own son. The servant was smart. He was a rasha, but he was a smart rasha. And he said, I'm the son. There was nobody there to disprove him. All of the other people were banished. They went, they left, they were never to be found. I'm the son. He says, how dare you lie? You know I'm the son. What are you talking about? I'm the son. They started fighting. They got into a big fight. The son left the palace. Goes to David HaMelech. David HaMelech listens to everything the son says. The son is crying before David. I was robbed. I was the only son of my father. Everything was taken away from me. He's a slave, this person. He's saying he's my father's son, but he's not my father's son. I'm the real son. Now, David HaMelech never saw the father in the first place. He doesn't know who the father is. He says, listen, I hear you. Tell me, do you have any proof? Do you have any witnesses? Do you have any evidence? I'm sorry, I don't have anything. I was so far away for so many years. I have nothing to prove that what I'm saying is true, though. The will doesn't prove anything. There is no. It says, give it to my son. Well, everybody's saying that they're the son. David HaMelech says, look, I can't help you. If you don't have any proof, there's nothing I can do for you. He says, no, you have to. He says, you know what, I'm going to call in the slave. You saying he's a slave? I'll call him in. Tell me, who does all this money belong to? The slave says, me. How come it belongs to you? You're just a slave. He says, no, I'm not. I'm the son. You have any proof? No, but I've been living here for the last 20 years as a son. Who is this person coming away from Africa? Who does he think he is? So David HaMelech says to the son who came from Africa, he says, do you have any proofs? I don't have any proofs. Do you have any proofs? I don't have any proofs, but I've been living here. He says, can't help you. The person who's been living here gets to remain to live here. There's nothing I can do until you bring me proof. The son started crying before David. You have to listen to me. You have to pay attention. He's stealing everything from me. David HaMelech says, I can't do anything. Don't you understand? The son kept on crying. David HaMelech says, you continue to cry, I'm going to have to punish you. Enough. Now, who's hearing all this? Little Shlomo. Maybe he was 10, maybe he was 11 years old. He was young. Shlomo HaMelech sees that there's something going on over here. He understands it needs to be solved, but you can't solve it without any proofs. So he says to the real son, calls him over, he says, come, I want to talk to you in private, so that nobody hears. He says, listen, I want you to go back to my father and continue crying and complaining to him. He says, I did, and your father got angry at me. He says, no, but this time, when my father says, why do you keep crying before me? Tell him like this, tell him that I want, if you can't judge this case, send this case to your son Shlomo, and let him judge, and let him bring out the truth. That's what you should say to my father. He says, okay, I'll do it. He comes before David HaMelech. David HaMelech sees him again, and he's angry at him. And the son continues crying, David, you have to do something. You have to do something. He says, didn't I tell you not to come before me again without any proofs? He says, David, our king, if you can't bring to light the truth, allow your son Shlomo to judge this case. David HaMelech hears, he looks at Shlomo, he says, you want to judge this case? Shlomo nods his head. David HaMelech says, very well. Go before Shlomo. Now Shlomo, David HaMelech was in the main chamber. Shlomo HaMelech took the son and took him to a side chamber to judge the case. So he hears the point. He has to listen to the case over again. The son tells him the whole story. I went to Africa, I did this, I made a lot of money from my father, then I came back, my father died. Shlomo Melech says, do you have any proof? He says, no, I don't have any proof. He says, why don't we call in the servant that you say is a servant? Let's call him in. He calls in the servant, do you have any proof? No, but I've been living here. I'm the son. He turns to the real son. He says to him, tell me, do you know where your father is buried? He says, no, I don't. I don't know where my father is. I told you I was in Africa when he died. How would I know? Okay, don't worry. He turns to the servant. He says, do you know where your father was buried? He says, absolutely I know. I'll show you. He says, can you go and take from your father the arm? He's buried. Take the bone of the arm and bring it before me. He said, absolutely I could do that. I know where he's buried and I'll prove to you that I know, and that's why I'm the real son. And he goes and he finds where the father was buried. He digs up the grave. He takes the bone of the shoulder, the arm, and he brings it before Shlomo. He says, here, you see, this is the bone. Shlomo says, very good, give it to me. He takes it, puts it on the table. He says, now I'm going to ask both of you to take in a little container to draw blood. You know how you take a blood test? You have to draw blood. I'm sure everybody has done a blood test. So he said, everybody, I have my doctors here. They're going to do what's called bloodletting. Bloodletting is a way to take out the blood. They just take it out from the shoulder in the olden times. Today they take it out from the arm. Back then they used to take it from the shoulder. So there were two expert bloodletters. One of them did it for the son, one of them did it for a slave, and they took their blood and put it into bowls, into like instruments. Now Shlomo was holding the bone of the father, and he had blood from the son, and he had blood from the servant. And the whole entire hall was already full, because people heard about this case, and they said, Shlomo Melech is doing so many interesting things. The place got full, and people started looking, and there was a whole crowd. Shlomo Melech holds up the bone. It says, behold, I will take this bone, and I will dip it into the blood. First he dips it into the blood of the servant. He leaves it in there for about 30 seconds, pulls it out, and they see that the blood washes away from the bone. The bone remains white. Almost no blood was left on it. It was inside, he picked it up, it all washed away. It remained in the bowl. Shlomo Melech says, okay, now watch. Takes the same bone, puts it in his other hand, dips it into the blood of the son. An amazing thing happens. He pulls it out, the blood stuck to the bone. Shlomo Melech says, let me explain to you what you just saw. From this bone came this blood. That's why it's stuck to it. He's the real son. Give him everything. The whole entire palace saw this and they were shocked. They couldn't believe that such a thing is possible. Today, people believe it more because we understand there's such a thing called DNA. And the bones might look the same, but they're completely different because they have a different makeup. But back then, it was Shlomo HaMelech was super wise. He was able to figure it out, this concept that the blood sticks to the bone because it belongs from the same entity. This bone was the father, and the blood of the son belongs to the bone. So Shlomo HaMelech was able to judge the case. He is the son. They took that slave, and they put him under a lot of pressure, and he admitted. He says, you're right, I made up the whole story. He admitted to the truth, and everybody saw the wisdom of Shlomo. Even David HaMelech, his father, was impressed. He said, very good. I wasn't able to figure it out. You were able to figure it out. That's how incredible Shlomo HaMelech was. Now let's go back to our first story for a second. The Ben Ish Chai asked a question. He said, how come Shlomo HaMelech didn't know? Just take a hammer, hit one over the head, one of the heads. If the other head starts to say, ouch, 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 you'll know that it's one person. And if the other head just minds its own business and doesn't feel anything, then it's two people. You know what the answer is? Because Shlomo HaMelech already tried that. And when he hit the one over the head, the second one didn't react. However, Shlomo HaMelech realized it doesn't make sense. It's one body. It's really one person. How come the second one didn't say anything? Says the Ben Ish Chai, he went that night and cried to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says, I know the truth is that they're one person, but I don't know how to show the whole world that that's the truth. I don't know how to prove that that's the truth. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealed to him in a dream a special segula. This wasn't something that was a wisdom of logic. It was actually something mystical. It was a segula. That if you take hot water and you mix it with old aged wine and you put it on a linen, only a linen cloth, it's going to cause the other head to feel. And Shlomo HaMelech used that potion, that sort of trick, to figure out how to get the other head to feel. And that was the genius of Shlomo, to be able to know this segula that nobody else knew. This amazing secret that other people were not familiar with. Says the Ben Ish Chai like this. What does it say? Bikesh kohelet limtzo divrei hefetz. Shlomo HaMelech had these two cases happen to him, where the whole world saw his wisdom. He was so proud of himself. He said, you know what? I'm so wise. I was given wisdom by God that I could figure out the ruling, the truth, without witnesses. Look at all these things. He was able to figure it out from the bone. He was able to figure it out from the wine. I don't need witnesses to figure out what the truth is. Says Shlomo HaMelech, everybody else, God commands them. You have to have two witnesses to prove the case. You want to give this money to him? You want to go ahead and give him an inheritance? Give me witnesses. But I can figure things out from segulot, from special ways that other people are not. So I don't need witnesses. That's what Shlomo HaMelech was saying. Bikesh kohelet limtzo divrei hefetz. And what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu respond? V'chatuv yosher divrei emet. No, Shlomo HaMelech. I did that for you as an exception. I did that for you in order so people should be able to see your wisdom, and that those people themselves will admit that the truth was like you said. But you want to go ahead and violate the Torah and not require witnesses, you're making a mistake. That's how the Ben Ish Chai explains it. But there's a question you might ask. Listen to this. Tell me what you think. If you remember about 7 or 8 weeks ago, we talked about another story with Shlomo HaMelech. It's a famous one. Remember, we had the two mothers. Each mother had a little infant, 3 days old. One of the infants was dead. One of them was alive. This mother is saying, my infant is the one that's living. And hers is the one that's dead. Because she was sleeping in the middle of the night and crushed her own baby. And the other one says, no, that's not what happened. The one you're holding that's alive is mine. And this one is yours, and you switched it in the middle of the night. Yours is the one that died. And Shlomo HaMelech had this case, remember? And he had to determine what to do. So what did Shlomo HaMelech do? He said, oh, you know what? We'll split the baby in half. Bring me the sword. Split it in half. And the real mother said, no, please don't do that. Just give it to her. He said, she's the real mother. Remember this? The Ben Ish Chai asks a question. He says, look, I understand that we don't know who the fathers are. Because the way it's described is that these two women were zonot. Zonot means that you don't know who the fathers are. You know that they're two babies. These are the mothers. You don't know which baby belongs to which mother. The fathers are out of the picture. Either because it was simply, like the Torah describes, zonot, or possibly because these were two wives of the same husband. So everybody knows that there's only one husband. But asks the Ben Ish Chai a question. He says, why didn't Shlomo HaMelech prove who the real mother was, using the same trick? There's a dead baby and there's a live baby. Tell the mothers to take blood, put it into a bowl, take one of the bones of the dead baby, you're not going to take from the live baby, obviously, you're going to take from the dead baby, and put it in this blood. If it sticks, so you know who the mother is. If it doesn't stick, go to the other one, it will stick. And you say, okay, here is the dead baby belongs to this one, the live baby belongs to that one. Why didn't Shlomo HaMelech use this exact trick that he used in the times of David, his father? Why didn't he use that to determine who the baby was? This is the question that the Ben Ish Chai asks in the name of the Eretz Tzvi. It's a good question. He gives a beautiful answer. The Gemara in Masechet Kiddushin tells us, every single person was born through a partnership. Did you know that? Every person is born through a partnership. Which partnership? Father, mother, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's three partners. Shlosha shutafim ba'adam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the father and the mother. What does the father do? The father provides all of the bones. The mother provides the skin, the flesh, the meat, the muscle. That's the mother. The father provides the bones, the white of the eye. Anything that's white, that's from the father. So Gemara says, so the father provides the skeleton, the mother provides the flesh, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu provides what? The neshama. The neshama is God's portion. But we are all a composition of both our father and mother and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says the Ben Ish Chai, in the first case, where there was a dispute, who's the father? He said, no, I'm the son of this father. He says, no, I'm the son of this father. And there was one that was really the father, and the other had really a different father. So there was a dispute about the father. In the second case, what was the dispute? The dispute was, who is the mother of the baby? So when you're trying to determine the father, the bone will be able to make a determination. Because the bone and the blood stick to each other, that determines, hey, he's the father, because the father is the one that provides the bone. However, in the case of determining the mother, what's a bone going to help? The mother has no portion in the determination of the bone. So therefore, the bone will never match to the mother, because it's the portion of the father. So the bone is not a proof in the case of the baby, because you're trying to determine, is she the mother? Is she the mother? So it's not going to stick to the bone. But when you're trying to determine who the father is, that's going to be effective. That is going to be a real indication. So this is how the Eretz Tzvi answers the question and explains such the wisdom of Shlomo HaMelech was so deep. He understood exactly how to make scientific determinations. He was able to tap into such wisdom, and it got to the point that everyone was able to recognize the wisdom of Shlomo HaMelech. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.